Welcome back, students, to the next session of English literature. Today we'll be dealing with the prose section. We'll be starting with Chief Seattle's speech. And before we start with Chief Seattle's speech, let me introduce you to who Chief Seattle was. He was a prominent and respected member of a Squamish tribe. Squamish tribe was a tribe which is living in the present day in Washington. In this, he was a prominent figure among his people who were the natives of America, and he was a warrior with a considerable reputation for daring raids on other Indian tribes. He realized the inevitability of the coming tide of white settlement, that is, he knew that in course of time the whites are going to take over the land and the area of America, and they will be overpowering his people. In 1854, he made his speech on difference between Indian way of life and white way of life to more than 1,000 of his people gathered to greet the government's Indian superintendent. A year later, US government ceding much of the area on which the city of Seattle now stands. In his speech, he spoke about their ecological responsibilities and respect for the native people. He felt their hostilities should end and they should live in harmony. The white chief should take the responsibility of protecting the natives. The native people, in return, agreed to live on the land marked for them. Seattle strikes a note of optimism when he accepted that the proposition made by White appeared just. But as he's slightly apprehensive, he puts the condition that the natives should be allowed to visit the graves of their ancestors whenever they so wished. This is how the author puts forward an idea of respect for elders and the value of traditions of their race. Now, Chief Seattle, when he delivered his speech at Washington in 1854, he spoke about, and he originally addressed this to the governor Isaac Stevens, and a response to Governor Stevens' proposal to the land treaty. During this time, Seattle claimed that the rare opportunity to address the Euro-American representations of American Indians to express his love for the land. During this time, he has made 2 addresses, that is, one to the white chief, which is Isaac Stevens, and he addresses even about a great chief, that is, the President of America during that time, that's Franklin Pierce. In this, Chief Seattle, when he spoke about it in Washington, he said that nature's sympathetic role in the life of Chief Seattle is important. Youth's impulsive nature led them into war and can destroy them. So youth should not be impulsive. They should control their anger and aggressiveness. The third point which he discusses is that everything on the earth has life, and earth is sacred. He ironically gives a reference to George Washington as natives' good father. The God of whites is different from the natives' great spirit who guides them through tradition. That is, he speaks about the importance of culturally grounded to the root, attached to the traditions. The next point which he discusses is, for the natives and their ancestors, their land and culture is sacred. He speaks it on account of the tribe which was residing in that area, and then he speaks how for natives, the ancestors, the graves of their ancestors, and the land and the culture in which they have lived for years, it's a sacred and it's a ceremonial place. The natives and the whites will have common faith. He knew that because of development which was coming in near future, the natives, those who were Red Indians, and the whites, they will have something common between them, for they have to merge, otherwise there can be a serious consequences of war. And in case if they ever had this kind of a fate, the Red Indians would have suffered. The native tribes would agree to sell the land only if they are allowed the privilege of visiting their land. Now in this he speaks that it was important for them to get connected, and they are ready to sell their land on an account that there should have been a permission and they would be privileged to visit their land as often as possible and without any kind of obstacle and hindrance. The last point which he speaks is, the whites will never be alone, for this land will swarm with the invisible dead of the Seattle tribe. That is, this land belonged to the people of Seattle, the people of Red Indian, and they are invisibly present in the land and that area, and at any cost they will never be able to have that land on their own. This was an introduction to Chief Seattle. Before we continue with the next, we'll start with the chapter in the next session. I would request you all to please do a detailed study on Chief Seattle. Thank you.